On today's Join Us in France, romantic Paris, and more specifically, honeymoon in Paris. This is Join Us in France, episode 130. Hello, I'm Annie, and I'm here to share with you my travels and discovery of France, and also interview listeners who visit France and have great tips to share from their own trips to France. I love France. I was born and raised here. I live in France, but in my early 20s, I left to go live in the UK for 2 years and then the US for 18 years. So I had to rediscover my own country when I moved back to France, and I want to help you understand France better because I, like you, have a passion for travel done right. For show notes and links on this episode, go to joinusinfrance.com/130, the number 130. Paris is the city of romance, the place where budding romance blossoms and where older couples go to renew their vows. I'm not sure if this is the result of the gorgeous architecture, maybe the sounds of the French language, the emphasis that French culture puts on the importance of romance in one's life. The fact is, Paris is the romance capital of the world. Here are my 12 tips for having a wonderful romantic time in Paris. 1. You're on your honeymoon. Let your hotel know. There is a whole romantic industry in Paris with people who know how to treat visitors like royalty. Of course, the palaces will roll out the red carpet and give you a lot more perks and wonderful things. But even if you're not paying that much for your room, if you're paying like $150 a night or something, you're probably in the kind of hotel where if you tell them that you're on your honeymoon, they'll give you a little bit of spoilage and your mileage may vary. But given the fact that lately room occupancy rates have been down a little bit in Paris, hoteliers, how do you say that? Hoteliers? Les hoteliers. I don't know. Anyway, those people who keep the hotels or run the hotels are motivated to keep their customers happy. So say the words, lune de miel, honeymoon. And French hospitality professionals will light up and hopefully give you a few extra perks. Number 2, pretty obvious, but don't overlook this. Take a stroll along the Seine River, and around the Louvre is really nice, or maybe even better, go walk around the Ile Saint-Louis. Early evening at Ile Saint-Louis is absolutely glorious. Stop at a cafe or a restaurant. I've had dinner at a restaurant called Le Saint-Régis, and I loved it, and I'll put the link in the show notes. 3, go see the Eiffel Tower sparkle. You can do that from a river cruise, but if you do it on a river cruise, the trick is to time it right, because the Eiffel Tower only lights up for 5 minutes on the hour after dark. So if you want to be sure not to miss the sparkle, go to the Trocadero and admire it from there. The Trocadero is on Metro Line 6 and 9. What you could do to make it extra special is to bring some chocolates or macarons, maybe a bottle of bubbly. You could buy some inexpensive champagne glasses at the grocery store, and that will do the trick very nicely. Number 4, take a cab or an Uber and ask them to take you on a Paris by night tour. Most people won't spring for that because that might get a little bit expensive, but if you want to be romantic, seeing all those buildings lit up will certainly do it. Number 5, surprise your beloved with a late night visit to the Louvre on a Friday night, especially where the museum stays open till 9:45. It is practically deserted and you will be able to take selfies in front of the lit up pyramid after dark. And even if you can't go on a Friday night, you really should go to the pyramid after dark. It's really nice. Number 6, go out to a wine bar. To find a good one near you, go to yelp.com and enter the term wine bar in English and your arrondissement number. Arrondissement, as you know, is the way Paris is cut up into districts. So, for example, type Paris 6E if you are in the 6e arrondissement. So you do the number 6 and the letter E. Keep them together. This is important because if you do 6 space E, it'll get confused. Computers, they're stupid. So what you do is you go wine bar, Paris 6E. If you don't know what arrondissement you're in, look at the zip code. Like if it says 75010, then you're in the 10th. If it says 75001, then you're in the 1st, etc. Number 7, go out to a gourmet meal. Now, it doesn't have to be a starred restaurant. We've had lots of great restaurant recommendations on this podcast, including many on episode 129 last week. And of course, in Paris, no waiter will ever rush you to leave your table, and they won't interrupt you to ask, how's everything going? You know, this is one part of standard American restaurant service that I do not miss. I like people, I like waiters to leave me alone. Number 8, don't overlook simple pleasures, like buy him or her a pastry to enjoy on a park bench, get some roasted chestnuts. They're going to start appearing very soon. This is November, late November, as I record this. Maybe you could try some oysters at the farmer's market. You could buy a bottle of something or other to take back to your hotel room. There are plenty of inexpensive bubbly wines in France. You can look for bottles around 5 and 10 euros that say on the bottle, they'll look like a champagne bottle, but instead of saying champagne, it'll say Crémant, Cremant. I'll put it on the show notes so you can see it. Crémant, or it'll say méthode champenoise. And that means it's not officially a champagne, but it's going to taste very much like a champagne. If you're a wine connoisseur, you'll know the difference. But for most people, the Crémant or méthode champenoise is plenty good. Number 9, public displays of affection are not frowned upon in Paris or anywhere in France. We even have a famous classic French song that glorifies kissing in public, and I'll put a link to a YouTube video of my favorite one. We have several of these songs, but my favorite one, I'll put a link to it. It's called Les Amoureux des Bancs Publics, and it's by Brassens. And this particular YouTube video has some great photos. It displays the lyrics. So if you're working on your French, that'll help you too. Number 10. Oh, it turns out I don't have 12. I only have 11. Number 10. Make an effort to get great views overlooking the city from the rooftop of somewhere. So you could go to the Institut du Monde Arabe, for instance, where you'll get a great view of the Ile Saint-Louis and Notre Dame, or you could get ticket to go up the Tour Montparnasse. The city looks really nice from up there. You'll need to bundle up if it's winter because it's cold at that altitude. But we have this saying in French that the best thing about being on the top of the Tour Montparnasse is that you can't see it anymore. I don't think it's that ugly, but people, we're French, we're grouchy. There is a champagne bar on the 56th floor. It's called Ciel de Paris. And I really enjoyed my nighttime view from up there, personally. It's easy to get to. It's a good place to see the sparkle, You're a little bit far away, but I like it. And you can stay as long as you like. Well, until closing, that is. But they stay open kind of late. And you could also, if you want to get nice views of the city from a vantage point, you could also go to the Sacré-Cœur. The problem is you're going to be there with thousands of other people. So, although Tour Montparnasse in the summer, it can get busy too. And last but not least, number 11, you're in Paris. Do what you want. We'll get to hear what Gary Turco and his new bride decided to do coming up in just a minute. He's got some great suggestions for us. But each couple needs to find what works for them. And I'm sure as a listener to the show, you're getting lots of inspiration from different people. Don't be worried about not following in everybody else's footsteps. Be your own man, your own woman. It is a thing in France. We as a matter of fact, we like to be different. Just, vive la différence. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. As I record this introduction, Thanksgiving 2016 is a few days away. Time for me to make sure that my tablecloth is ironed, which I hate doing, and my silverware is polished, which I also hate doing. But I want my friends and family to be reçus en beauté. I want to try to put on a nice table for my friends and family. And so we're all ready for the feast. This year I will celebrate, as we always do, with friends, family. Our biggest table at this small little French house that we live in, it can seat 14, but I've invited 15 guests, and so I don't know, I might need a miracle slimming cure for us all to fit in. We'll see. We'll manage. Elise and her husband will be joining us, and she makes a great apple pie, and she also told me that she has this most coveted item in her freezer, cranberries. Yes, I love them. You have to have homemade cranberry sauce, don't you think? But in France, it's hard to find fresh cranberries, so I'm glad she has some. I am very grateful for my loved ones and for the Join Us in France community. Today, I want to thank 3 new patrons who have pledged their support to the show, bringing us up to 36 patrons. And they are Ingrid Gangstad. I'm sorry, Ingrid, if I can't say your name correctly. Gangstad, maybe. Dana Obin and Ali Davis. Thank you very much. I'm 3 weeks into this pledge drive. I am 25% to my goal, which some people might consider slow, but I consider it amazing because you are giving out of the kindness of your heart and a desire to support my efforts in bringing you a genuine slice of France. And that's amazing as far as I'm concerned. So I would like to thank you. And if you too would like to become a patron of the show, go to patreon.com, patreon/join us, no space between the join and the us. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and dream of your next romantic getaway to Paris. And now it's time for a fun chat with Gary Turco. Thank you, Gary, for talking to me and sharing your experiences. And that's definitely one of the things I am grateful for this Thanksgiving is the many people who have given of their time to share on the show. Hello, Gary.
Bonjour, Annie.
Bonjour, Gary. Welcome to Join Us in France.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I'm speaking to a celebrity. I've been listening to you for over a year. At some points, almost every day on my long car ride commutes to work. So, yeah, it's kind of an honor to speak to you.
Oh, it's lovely to get to know you as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Today, we're going to talk about romantic Paris, which is a wonderful subject, so which we haven't really talked about in the past. We've done plenty of Paris episodes about going with kids, going alone, going to do all sorts of adventures everywhere, but not romantic. So this is great. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's start there.
Sure. My name's Gary, and my wife is Leslie. She can't be with me today. Unfortunately, she has to work, but we live in Los Angeles, California.
Nice.
And thank you. And I work for a digital media ad network, and she works, my wife Leslie, for a very popular social media app. She didn't want me to say the name of it, but it's not Twitter and it's not Facebook. So maybe you can put 2 and 2 together there.
Yeah, that doesn't leave too many.
And when we mentioned where she worked to people in Paris, they heard of it, especially the younger people, and they were like thrilled to meet her because they love using the app even in Paris.
Of course. Yeah, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's a very popular app.
Sure.
Great.
And
great.
we were married in mid-September of this year, 2016.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And then we left for our honeymoon right after that, 2 days later, to France. It was our first time visiting France and our second time to Europe.
Wow. So why did you pick France? Because it's romantic, I guess?
I'm so glad you asked that because I did a lot of thinking of it. Basically, I became in love with the idea of going to France when I first visited the city of Quebec in Canada. many years ago with a college roommate before I met Leslie. And when I actually told this to somebody in Paris, they laughed at me as if the two couldn't be more different. They were like, oh, we make fun of the people from Quebec's accents and the way they try to say French words because they don't speak real French. That's one of the tour guides in Paris told me. She was joking, obviously. But,
Yeah.
the province of Quebec, and especially Quebec City, I mean, that was all a territory of France.
Right.
Way back hundreds of years ago now, but then became a territory of the British.
Right.
So there's a lot of resemblance of the French in Quebec. First thing that they all in Quebec, and Montreal too. I first went to Montreal. Montreal still kind of felt like America. But once you went a little further, about 2-hour drive to Quebec, you really immersed yourself in more of the French culture. And everyone spoke French. A lot of the food was French. The cobblestone streets, the bistros, the chateaus, the cities on a river.
Yeah.
It is considered the most European city in North America.
Yeah, I've heard all sorts of good things about it. I've been to Montreal, but not to Quebec City. Some other time I will go because it sounds really fun. And I've heard lots of French people say that they love it over there. So
it's got a very romantic feel. So after I was there, I said to myself, okay, I need to find a wife one day, and then I need to go on a honeymoon to the real thing in France, in Paris particularly,
A man with goals. That's great.
Yes. And then it finally happened many years later, in 2016. And when, Leslie and I got engaged in the middle of 2015 and we started to plan the honeymoon, I think she just really thought a honeymoon should be go to a beach somewhere, Tahiti or the Caribbean, and just kind of relax all week and do nothing. And that was her idea of a honeymoon.
Yeah. That's a fair honeymoon, too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure. And I think it could be great, but, we kind of talked about it and said, well, how memorable is that experience really going to be? We're going to have some beautiful pictures of the scenery and, we're going to remember lying there on the beach having Mai Tais, but are we really going to build these, everlasting, really incredible moments of doing all these neat things? And
that's
she
a
knew
good point.
Yeah, and she knew it was my dream to go to France. So she said one thing to me. Okay, we're going to do this France trip. That's your dream. But you have to promise me it's not going to be this nonstop, always going, visiting everything there is to see and do. This needs to be a leisurely, relaxing vacation.
Sure.
So that's what I was up against. And from listening to your podcast over a year, and you and Elise and things like that, there's telling about so much to do and so much to see.
That's
to
true.
Narrow that down and do it in a leisurely way and cross things off that you're not going to do was a difficult feat.
Yeah.
And I was so lucky that I found your podcast when I was starting to think, okay, how am I going to do this? I originally actually found you and Elise on you were a guest on a different podcast where you talked about things not to do in Paris, things to maybe skip.
Yeah.
You were a guest, and eventually you did the same type of one on this podcast and Join Us in France. And that immediately was like, oh my God, this is great. I can just cross off these things that I maybe shouldn't do, focus on the things that I should do. So that's how I found your show, and it was a lifesaver because it really helped me plan things to get a taste and a highlight of everything without feeling so jam-packed.
Right. And I think that's a really good point because I think that's what the podcast is best at, is to give people a taste for whether or not they would like a place. I don't really tell you all the details. I don't tell you all the opening hours and the closing times and what metro you should take and all that, because that's stuff you can look up easily enough. What's difficult when you buy a guidebook is you still don't know which of these many things you want to do. It's picking one that's going to be better over others. So that's what I think the show is good at. And especially having people like you come on the show because you share your perspective. And that's really, really valuable, I think.
That's so true. And all the different guests that you come on have different perspectives. So that's why I'm really excited to do this because my perspective may be similar to other people that are having a honeymoon and want a romantic trip where they don't want to feel like they ran around and they get home and they need a vacation from the vacation.
Yeah.
You know, they want to experience the Parisian life and you know and all the romantic part of Paris, but without being exhausted doing it. You know?
Exactly. Okay, that's wonderful. So tell me, where did you stay? Did you do Airbnb or hotels?
So we did a total of 10 days for our trip.
Yep.
And 4 was devoted to Paris. Before then, we went to the French Riviera to try to do a little bit more relaxing and do another 4 nights there. So in Paris, we actually stayed at the Intercontinental Hotel, the Le Grand Hotel, in the 9th arrondissement. I'm terrible at pronouncing the French word, so correct me whenever I say it wrong. But the 9th district was the Intercontinental Le Grand. It's a beautiful hotel. It's built during the Napoleon era. It's right near the opera.
Okay, that's good.
Which is a beautiful building in itself. We did not go inside, but a gorgeous building. The hotel was actually used in the movie Frantic, which is a movie with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
It looks a lot better in person than the movie because the movie's kind of dated. It's about 30 years old.
Oh,
and the hotel's had some facelifts and things like that since then. So the hotel, the service was amazing. They sent up champagne and macaroons, all of that within the hotel, and the area around there, tons of bistros and shopping and cafes, was wonderful. The only downside I would have to say is where it was in the 9th is not as convenient to walking to a lot of the major tourist attractions.
Right.
I would have maybe stayed like in the 1st or something like that. The 9th, you do need to commute to most things that you're going to see.
I think that's right. I'm going to Paris in a few weeks, and I'm going to be staying in the 1st because when you're there, it's so easy, and there are a few hotels in the 1st that are not so expensive. So yeah, you have to pick, but the 9th is a lovely place too.
Yeah, it definitely has a very Parisian feel to it. The hotel had a spa, so we got jet lag massages when we got off the plane to start our honeymoon relaxing before going for a big night out. And I can tell you too that it wasn't too inconvenient not being able to walk to everything because I used Uber the entire trip.
Okay.
And I know that Paris, from everything I'm told, heard on your podcast, has an excellent metro system, and it's very easy to go around. But one of the things I was trying to do on this, honeymoon as well, because I'm trying to make it very relaxing for my wife, is I was doing more convenience than worried about budget.
Of course. Hopefully, you'll only ever go on one honeymoon, and so that's a good choice.
Exactly. So some people may hear the things that I did on this trip and say, he spent, $30 for a cab ride. We could have just spent $5 for a metro or euro, and I was just looking for it to be chauffeured around and everything like that. So Uber was great with Verizon. I heard this isn't with all U.S. cell phone plans, but Verizon, you can sign up and pay $10 a day extra, and you use your regular minutes and data from your U.S. plan.
Oh, that's really good.
4 days, 40 extra, US dollars. And I was able to use my regular data. And it was great for maps and it was great for Uber. I used that the entire time. So that worked out well.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah, I agree with you. When you're on a honeymoon or when you have really not very much time, because 4 days goes fast. Just don't, take taxis, take Uber. Don't try to figure out the metro system because when you know it, it's fantastic. But if you don't know where you're going and you are afraid of wasting time, go with Uber or taxis or whatever.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Do you speak any French?
No. And, we had the intention of, and we downloaded some apps and trying to learn some, but with all the wedding planning, who has time for those extra type of things? And I, kept hearing on your podcast and that you can get away with not knowing much, but know the pleasantries. So know hello and thank you and s'il vous plaît and all of that stuff. And we use those pleasantries in and out of every restaurant, every store, everybody that we talked to, and that worked well.
Excellent.
not tell you how accommodating the people of France in general, but especially Paris were to us not speaking any French. Soon as I said bonjour, they heard my accent and said, okay, this is not a local, and we're just going to speak English to him and help him out with whatever he needs. So, everywhere I went, people spoke English to me. And if they didn't know English that well, we figured it out together. I pointed to something. It worked well.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. That's really good to hear. But that's what most people have. I mean, I think everybody who's come on the podcast has said, it's fine so long as you use your polite words, and then you're fine.
Exactly. And, I wasn't going off to random people in the street. Everyone I was talking to was in basically the hospitality industry. So
sure.
They all just seemed like, and I also heard you did a podcast once on if, French people are rude. And it's this stereotype that some Americans have. And from my experience, it is not true whatsoever. I thought people were, and I grew up originally in New York, which, could be tough as it is. But I thought people in Paris were nicer than most Americans in my experience. And grateful that we were there spending money with, the recent things that have, gone on in Paris, the attack and everything like that. People were just like, thank you for coming and thank you for spending your honeymoon here, and we'll do anything we can to help you. So
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's great. Okay, so the thing when you go on a honeymoon is you have high expectations. Was it all you had hoped? Generally, I mean, I'm sure there were moments that were better than others, but overall, are you happy you decided to go to Paris?
Oh, most definitely. Just to see all of these things like the Mona Lisa, the Eiffel Tower, the Moulin Rouge, all these things that you see in movies and you hear about other people, you see people's pictures, and then you finally get to be there and stare at them. It's just like this feeling of awe and amazement, and it makes you feel so special. And to do that with your spouse when you're newly married, it just can't be like a better feeling of romance and love than doing that in Paris. So it was everything we dreamed of. Leslie jokes around that she didn't realize it was going to be so busy. There was going to be so many people. You see these famous scenes in a movie, and they're, couples strolling down the streets of Paris, and there's not many people around because when they're shooting the movie, they kind of probably clear people out,
Yes, of course.
So she's like, wait, well, why aren't we like the only two people walking along the Champs-Elysees or something like that? I'm like, well, that's not really what it's like, So.
It's a big city with lots of people. Yeah. That's actually one of the problems when I want to take nice photos is there's always people in cars and things like that in my shots, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to clear out the place. I have no right to do that, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, Leslie's an avid photographer, so she was just shooting nonstop, the architecture and the buildings and everything. And she kept on saying that too. This person's in my shot. This person's in my shot. I said, well, they want to enjoy the Eiffel Tower too. Like, there's nothing we can do,
That's right. Just roll with it. Okay, so let's talk about some of the specifics that you did while you were in Paris. You sent me a list. So you tell me about your dinner at the Jules Verne at the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, so this was our first night in Paris that we decided to go for this, big extravagant dinner to celebrate, the right way. A lot of people warned me against that because they said you're going to be so jet lagged and you're not going to want to do anything like, that crazy. Go for just a local dinner and get to bed early. But we said, we only had 4 days in Paris and we had to maximize our time. So had some espressos, had that massage, and then and the coffee was amazing in Paris, and the espresso, we loved that. And when you get to the Eiffel Tower and we got out of our Uber and we looked up, I think no matter how tired you are, you wake up quickly.
Yeah. It will do that to you. Yes.
Yeah. And you have this, this feeling of just, this beauty and this romance. And it was not very crowded. We went in September, which was a great time because I did not feel like the entire time was very, very crowded. Nothing we did, we had to wait very long. It's a great time, I think, to visit Paris. Kids are in school and people are working and things like that. And so we had to go through a quick line first that was just basic security. And then we were in the inner gates and we went to our private entrance for I'm going to say it the American way, the Jules Verne restaurant.
Yes.
And that was one of the reasons that I decided to book reservations for this restaurant. And I booked it exactly 3 months before the actual dinner. That's when the online booking opens. I tried to book it even earlier than that. They wouldn't let me. So 3 months before you're going to have dinner, that's when you can actually book it online or through email or through the phone. And I did it that day and requested a window because there are limited windows. I think every seat in the house you'll be able to see outside. You're on the second level of the Eiffel Tower, so you have an amazing view. Some people say it's even better than the top level.
I think it is, but...
And you know, so everywhere you're going to sit, but it is nice to actually be right on that window. It makes it feel more special.
Of course, yeah.
And there is another restaurant on the Eiffel Tower, and I think it's called like 158 or something like that. I forget the name.
Yes, but I don't remember the name either right now, but we've talked about it on the show, and that one is more of a, well, it's not a fancy restaurant. The Jules Verne is a beautiful, fancy restaurant.
It certainly is, and we got all dressed up for it. It was the only time, you know, that we really got really dressy because, you don't necessarily have to get extremely dressy, but you do want to look nice because it is a very nice restaurant. You get a private entrance, so you're not with everyone else fighting to go up the elevators.
Yeah.
And it's a Michelin star restaurant, and the entire experience is, you know, VIP. The service is amazing, and it's a prefixed, set menu that you choose from, but the presentation's unbelievable. It's kind of that gourmet French where the courses may not be very large, but it's all done in such an extravagant, beautiful presentation on the plate. Yeah. I ordered the 6-course menu with wine pairings. So there was a full glass of wine. Because sometimes you get the wine pairing, you get a little taste. It was a full glass of wine. So that's right away, I'm going to have 6 glasses of wine with my courses.
That's a lot of wine.
That's a lot of wine, but they feed you really well. I mean, these, you know, the actual items are not too small. There was a foie gras, different pâtés, lots of great bread, and there was a chicken dish, but then there were also several seafood dishes. So you should like, you know, seafood. There was scallops, there was sea bass, and something called sea bream. And they also throw out a couple extra, you know, dishes as well, courses. So even though it's 6, you end up eating 8. You do not leave hungry. And the dessert, they put like 5 or 6 different desserts, more desserts possibly than 2 people could eat at the table. And I think that was Leslie's favorite. She got the 5-course without the wine pairings, and she does not like seafood. But she was a good sport because it's her honeymoon. She's eating in the Eiffel Tower. She tried a little bite of each and then kind of passed it off to me. So I probably ate about, 15 courses by the time it was over. Very good food. And, I'll tell you, I looked at TripAdvisor a lot for everything I booked. And there were some mixed reviews on things. Maybe some people that are used to eating in very extravagant, fancy restaurants that really like to critique everything. Some said it's overrated, or it's too expensive, and it is pricey. I mean, you should probably budget. If you're going to do 2 people with the wine pairings, you should probably budget, $1,000 to be on the safe side. It might be a little under that, but if you start getting some cocktails and things like that, you're probably going to be right up that mark. It's, for me, the most expensive dinner I've ever had.
Yeah, that's expensive. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
It is, and, that's why you...
But it's your honeymoon. I mean...
Oh, that's what we said, and I would gladly do it all over again for my honeymoon, because the feeling of sitting there, and I may have sent you, I think, a picture too of us sitting at the table looking out at the Eiffel Tower and enjoying this meal. And they don't rush you either. The table is yours for the night. You want to sit there for 3, 4, 5 hours and enjoy these, and they space the courses out. You never feel rushed. It's extremely romantic. And then afterwards, they let you on the second level observation deck to kind of look out and enjoy that. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to go back down and back up.
That's
which
nice.
Was nice.
That's really nice.
Yeah, we were unfortunately not able to go all the way up to the top deck because the elevators were closed that day to do that. from the second level all the way to the top. I'm not sure why. They said it was maintenance. And, we did not feel like we were missing out because we had such an incredible experience at the Jules Verne and on the second level. And it gave us more time to go below and wait until it hit the hour to see everything sparkle and light up.
Yeah. That's
really
very nice. Yeah. That's really cool. All right, let's move on to your next visit. You went to the tour. You took a tour of the highlights of the Louvre.
Yes, we did. Our second day, after spending the day, walking around Ida la Cité. I know I'm saying that wrong.
It's good.
And visiting Notre Dame and the Latin Quarter and Saint Chapelle and all that. We did that in the day, which was wonderful. And then in the evening, a lot, but because things weren't very crowded, it was very easy. And strolling along the Seine River and, sitting out at a bistro or in the Latin Quarter, just, having some wine and everything was very relaxing and very romantic.
Yeah.
So that was a nice day. We never felt rushed and we felt like we saw a lot. But then at night, we made our way over to the Louvre where I used Viator, which is a TripAdvisor company, to book all of our tours for an entire trip. And for those not familiar with Viator, it's basically they're contracting with local French tour companies and posting the different companies and what they're offering on the site, but you purchase it through Viator. So there's a lot of different ones to choose from.
Yep.
And Leslie is not a big fan of museums. She wants to be outside, strolling along the Seine or sitting at a beach. Doesn't want to be stuck inside of museums. But we had to see the Mona Lisa, right? So the tour I booked was a highlights tour. It was a 2-hour highlights tour and then an hour of going to a wine tasting, which I'll talk about because it was the former sommelier. How do you say that?
Sommelier.
Exactly, of King Louis XV. So that's interesting as well. But so the Louvre.
It wasn't his sommelier because he would have been dead. You said it was
the location was right. The location and. And I'll just talk about that now because we're on it.
Yeah.
So it's right near the Louvre, and this was the winemaker and the person in charge of all the wine for King Louis XV. It was at the time where the Louvre was where King Louis XV lived before they went to Versailles, which I think probably started with King Louis XVI. I'm not sure if the 15 lived in Versailles, but it was actually at the time. There was an underground tunnel so that King Louis XV's winemaker could bring his wine underneath to the Louvre to make sure that the king always had his stock of wine that they needed.
Nice.
So this is the actual building, and it's still run today as a wine tasting place and cellar, and you can go to where King Louis XV's wine was stored in that cellar. And hear all about, the wine that the king liked and different things like that.
Very nice. So this is inside of the Louvre or just outside?
Just outside, just a couple blocks away.
Okay.
So did the highlight tour of the Louvre first and then went over there for
You're going to have to send me the name for that because I'll put it on the website because I'm not sure which one it is. I'm sure there's many wine places right around the Louvre.
Yeah, it's called basically in English, the Caves of the Louvre. So it's Les Caves du Louvre.
Les Caves du Louvre.
Exactly, and it's I'll send you the spelling of the street too. Yeah,
I'll find it with the name.
So the Louvre tour, we basically, for 2 hours, and our tour guide was telling us if you spent 3 seconds looking at each piece in the Louvre, and you looked for 3 seconds for 24 hours a day, it would take you 3 weeks straight to see every piece that's in the Louvre. So a 2-hour, tour and sitting in front of the piece and getting some history of it for, 5 minutes or whatever, you're not going to see a lot, right? Where maybe we start 15 pieces, maybe perhaps some of the most famous pieces. Of course, the Mona Lisa was the gem. And I know a lot of people are There are some people that say they're underwhelmed when they see the Mona Lisa because it's not very large, it's thick glass, there's a lot of people crowded around it.
Yeah.
But it's still an awe-inspiring moment to stare in front of the most, perhaps the most famous, artwork in the world. And
absolutely.
On your honeymoon, you're looking at it. It's a great moment. And in that room itself, right behind it, there's the largest painting where Jesus turned water into wine at a wedding.
Yes, le mariage de Cana. Yes, a beautiful piece. A beautiful piece.
So that is really wonderful to look at. And there's another very famous piece, and I'm sorry I don't know the name of these pieces, where Napoleon, it's focused on Napoleon, and he's basically crowning
Le Sacre de Napoléon.
Yes, that's an amazing piece to stare at for a while as well. That was I think just perfect for somebody that wants a taste of the Louvre and the famous pieces, but doesn't have the time to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, it sounds good to me, because really when people go to the Louvre and just wander around aimlessly, it is a horrible experience. It's just too much. Nothing makes sense. You get tired and that's it. So at least you were clear about what you wanted to get out of it, which is really, really important. And people can do this by themselves too. If they just want to select a few pieces, mark them on your map, and just go for those. That's the best way to see the Louvre.
Yeah, it was nice having the guide because we didn't have to worry about trying to find anything or getting lost.
Right.
And guide spoke English and everything like that. So that was nice. But you could certainly have done it on your own as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds like fun. Okay, so then you also did a bateau mouche or a boat ride on the Seine. Which company did you go with?
So, we didn't have the time to do the real grand tour on the Seine or dinner or something like that. I think that would have been great, but I wanted to at least say I was on a boat ride on the Seine. Yeah. So we just basically went to where it's like basically the water taxi.
Oh yes. So it's I can't remember the name right now. Les bateaux de Paris. Anyway, yes, I know what you mean. Yes.
It does like 7 different stops around.
Yes.
There's no talking during it. There's no bathrooms on it. There's no drinks on it. But, and it's good for the whole day. And you could use that to kind of get around to different sites or whatever if you'd like to. But we just
that's a really good way to get around. Yeah, it's a really good way to get around, actually, because they stop at a lot of places where you'd want to go when you're visiting Paris. So...
we took it from the Louvre to the Champs-Élysées and got off there and then kind of just, we didn't really stroll up and down the street. We basically found a bistro right near where the really impressive gate to get into the Abercrombie and Finch store is. There's gold and black gate, really, and it looks like you're going into a palace. It's Abercrombie and Finch. So that was, but there was a bistro there. We sat and ate there, and then our plan was to go see the art of Trillium. How do you say that? The big arc at the arch at the end of the street.
So la Grande Arche. À la Défense. La Défense? Oh no, you mean l'Arc de Triomphe.
Yes.
L'Arc de Triomphe, yes. Okay, l'Arc de Triomphe,
well,
sorry.
I wanted you to say it. It's much prettier than I can say it.
Yes.
Yeah, so we basically just wanted to see that, not waste our time with all of the shops on the Champs-Élysées that we can, shop here in LA at, basically, But we were able to see it quickly. But when we sat down at that bistro, I tried escargot for the first time.
Aha.
And I had a couple other things too. So it's really hard to narrow it down. But a little bit after that, I had a very bad allergic reaction where my face blew up.
Oh no! Oh.
Yeah. At first I started, sneezing and coughing, and I was like, I'm just having an environmental. And then my face blew up, and I knew it was so. We ran and got Benadryl somewhere. There's pharmacies everywhere, and everyone's really helpful. So I don't know if it was the escargot. I enjoyed the escargot, although it was difficult to get the snails out of the shells. But since it was my first time having it,
don't do that again.
So that was an interesting experience.
So all you needed was some Benadryl. You didn't need to go see a doctor or EpiPen or anything like that. Okay.
Yeah, I just took Benadryl, and and it took about a good 24 hours before the swelling went down.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you
Oh,
can see the picture I sent you at the Moulin Rouge, which is that night. You'll see on one of my eyes that it's still kind of swollen.
oh, I'll
So
have to pay attention to that. I didn't look
yeah,
at it that closely. I will look at it. Poor thing. I
which
feel bad.
which made me kind of tired during the Moulin Rouge play. And I was falling asleep a little bit, and it
Well,
wasn't
yeah,
because
with
of the play,
Benadryl. Like,
but
hello.
the Benadryl.
The
So.
Benadryl will do it to you.
But if
Oh
that's the worst
my.
that happens the entire trip, it was a great trip.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just want to go back for a second. You talk about
Yes.
the boat ride. That's the bateau bus, BATOBUS, and they have 7 stops. Or no, they have 9 stops, as a matter of fact. And you get a pass, like for 1 day or 2 days or whatever. And there's people in Paris. That's their transportation. They just take the. It's like it's like in Venice, the water taxis in Venice, or the water buses that they have in Venice. So bateau bus.
Yes.
Sorry, I took you back. I took you back. So
Oh no, that's okay. Yeah.
all right. So we were at your bad experience with escargot. You mentioned that you spent a lot of time on Ile de la Cité. Can you share any of the restaurants or cafes that you liked that you maybe would want to go back to or send people to?
Sure. I can tell you that we did not really pay attention to the names of a lot of the places because it's kind of one of those things where, you and Elise had mentioned that when you did one of your early podcasts about the island or the Latin Quarter and Paris in general, that there's a lot of bistros. I think you call them brasiers. Is that how you say it?
Des brasseries.
Brasseries. People are going to really laugh at me, but brasseries. You were not joking that there's a lot of brasseries.
Oh yeah, they're all over.
In Paris. It's like Starbucks in New York City. I mean, it's like, 3 on every block. And a lot of times we were just randomly strolling. Oh, this looks nice, and just kind of sat down. But one place that I can tell you that I recommend was on and you can say it in French, but the island of St. Louis.
L'île de Saint-Louis, yes, l'île de Saint-Louis.
We went for is it called Bertillon ice cream?
Ah yes, Bertillon. Yes, les glaces Bertillon.
Yeah, and there are a lot of places that actually sell the ice cream, but we
Yes.
went to the actual shop, which is in the middle of the island.
Yes.
And again, I used just my Google Maps on my phone and just Googled it and found it. It was easy to find. And you can either do takeout there or you can sit down. And we sat down and ordered different flavors of ice cream. They have homemade whipped cream. They have a real thick chocolate sauce. And that was excellent. So I'd recommend that. The ice cream may taste the same because it's their ice cream if you go to any shop, if you don't want to walk all the way to like the original place. But
you might as well.
Yeah. And, a lot of people, I guess, when looking online, there's kind of arguments with the French and Italians, which is gelato's better or the Bertillon ice cream is better, and
I'll tell you what, whichever one I have next to me is the best.
That's true. That homemade whipped cream is really great. You don't usually get gelato with whipped cream, in my experience, but with this ice cream, you get the whipped cream, and that also adds to it too.
That's nice.
Yeah. So I recommend that.
Excellent. But otherwise, you just went to whatever looked good, and you didn't have any horrible experiences anywhere.
No, I can tell you, and I know you've mentioned this in your podcast too, that the steak and the red meat is not the same as Americans may be used to in the U.S.
Yeah.
So Leslie, we ordered the steak and frites and, hamburger and fries. And I think Leslie wasn't that impressed with the actual quality of the meat. It doesn't, it tastes fresh and it's good. It's just a little tougher, I would say.
It's tough. It is.
And it's probably better for you. It probably has less hormones and, GMOs and things that we do in America.
Could be.
But I didn't mind it. And, I had every meal with, lots of wine. And you suggested ordering just like table wine, just the tabled red wine. It's inexpensive and it tastes great.
Yeah.
Or beer. There was this beer, 1664, that seemed to be very popular.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that. And we always had espresso and everything. But just sitting at the bistros and people watching and trying to live that Parisian lifestyle was great.
Very
I can
nice.
tell you what you've mentioned on the show too, that if you're sensitive to smoke, you may want to sit further inside.
Exactly.
There were
Yeah.
tables where we would sit that were kind of like inside outside, but because the table's outside smoke, that smoke does kind of blow in and it could be right in your face while you're eating.
Yes.
So if you're sensitive to that, something that to keep in
Yes.
mind.
Yes. And just a quick note, if you want to have a nice steak frites in Paris or anywhere in France, as a matter of fact, you can go to l'Entrecôte. It's a kind of a small family chain. They only have maybe 5 or 6 in the whole country, but it's always very, very good. And that's all they serve is entrecôte and homemade fries. And then when you arrive, and they serve it with a little salad, a little green salad. They don't even give you a choice of dressing or anything. And then they ask you if you want what color wine you want, and at the end, if you want a dessert, and that's it. But it's very good.
Yeah, that was recommended to me, actually. I wish we kind of found it and went there for that experience.
Well, yeah, but if it's out of the way, I can't remember exactly where it is. I walked past it a few times, but I've walked past so many things in Paris, I don't remember really what it is. But anyway, okay, very good. Let's move on to Versailles. You went to Versailles, and how was that?
It was great. We booked on Viator. We had a tour guide come and pick us up at the hotel, pick up some other groups. So we didn't worry about trying to get there with the train or metro or anything like that, which I hear is easy, but this seemed even easier to us.
Yeah.
Now, the guide kind of gave us some commentary while we were on the drive, and then arranged for us to get our tickets, kind of skip the line, get the tickets. That was the same thing with the Louvre too, kind of skip the line type of VIP stuff, no waiting around, got our audio stuff, and then kind of just set us on our way. And that was the only thing I kind of regretted in all my planning was the Versailles day, because we had the audio for inside, and then we went out and did the gardens and went to Marie Antoinette's Hamlet and some of the other buildings that are there. We had lunch at Angelina's, which has the most amazing hot chocolate.
Yeah,
it's like this real thick chocolate that was really great.
Yep.
But I didn't get a lot of the history that I would have liked from the experience. I'm a big history buff. I had kind of listened in when we were walking to professional tour guides telling stories to their groups, and I said, shoot, that sounded like we would have really got a lot out of learning all of those different stories about Marie Antoinette's life and King Louis XVI and the things that they did. Right. I felt like the audio tour, the things that I heard were a lot more about the room I was in and the furniture and things like that, and not enough about the life of them. So I do kind of feel like we missed out a little bit. And the reason I didn't do that professional guide, because I thought it would be kind of more romantic to leisurely stroll hand in hand in the gardens and, give a kiss here and a picture here and not feel any pressure or anything. And I think that would have been fine, but then we should have maybe done a half day and then went back to Paris and did some other things rather than a full day, 8 hours. At some point, we just hanging in the garden saying, oh, boy, we've kind of seen everything and we have another 4 hours here,
Yeah, that's true, because, Versailles is huge. But really, if you are just wandering around, it's one thing. I have cousins who live in Versailles, and they go to the grounds just to hang with kids, their grandkids, whatever. But if you're just a visitor, you're not going to be running around after a kid on his bicycle. So it's like you don't really have a purpose to be there. And, it would have been better. And I think you don't need the whole day in Versailles, especially when you only have 4 days. So, yeah, that's good advice to maybe, if you want to see Versailles, which is, it's gorgeous. It's very impressive. Half a day would probably be enough in your case.
Yeah, I agree. And, like you said, though, it is gorgeous. It is impressive. It is something, I think, to see. I know some people would say, with only 4 days, that's probably something they would maybe skip. But the
I would
history
have.
around the palace and the beauty of it, it's something that's I think
Yeah.
worth seeing at some point. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Montmartre. You went to Montmartre as well. You got a lot of things in for you who wanted to do an easy 4 days. You did a lot of stuff. So Montmartre, tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've read too that it was a very touristy area and something to skip. You're not going to have the Parisian feel, but we did not feel that, and it was actually one of Leslie's favorite places in all of Paris.
Well, there you go. That's good.
We had, and maybe that's because it kind of caters to tourists. But we had the Uber driver or the taxi driver just drive us way up the hill, because that is a very steep hill to get to the top where the square is, where they have lots of nice restaurants and they have different artists doing caricatures and people selling things and stuff like that.
Well, there is a little, if you take the metro, there is a little, what do you call that? A crémaillère. There's like a little short ride that will take you up the stairs.
Yeah, I did hear that.
Yeah.
And I think I saw that, or there was buses and things like that, but we just got dropped out at the top and, we kind of walked around. We didn't have a lot of time because we had to get down to see the Moulin Rouge show. But we had dinner up there. We actually had dinner in an Italian restaurant, which was very good. I had excellent, really fresh homemade pasta, and Leslie had pizza. And it was just a nice, quaint area just to, sit and relax. And then we walked down from there. We walked in front of the church. We did not have time to go in, but we walked down, and it was very interesting. When we were walking down, we saw people playing golf on the street.
Really?
That is, and it sounds like you've never heard of it, so I don't know. It may be not such a popular Parisian sport, but if someone's playing golf on the street here, they may get arrested because they might, break a car or, But the way they were playing with these short little strokes in the street looked like there was no danger to the cars driving by or around them or the buildings with windows. It seemed like a very organized sort of sport, and they had to stop every time a car wanted to come, and there were a group of people watching, and just an interesting little thing that people might find fascinating.
That's bizarre, but okay, all right.
So we didn't do, I had looked at the tour books, and there was a lot to do in that area. There's different museums and a whole recommended kind of walk that you can do in that whole area. And we didn't necessarily have time for that, but just strolling through that area, having lunch there, we enjoyed it. We had seen the movie Amelia, I believe it's called.
Yes, Amélie Poulain.
Yeah, which is, takes place in all that area, and the cafe that she worked at is there.
Yes.
So, just kind of a nice area to stroll around, even if you don't get to do all of the other interesting things in the area.
Right. Yeah. There are lots of famous places right around there because of Amélie Poulain. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a nice place. I mean, it's a bit too touristy for me, but I've been there so many times. But Elise loves it. She's like, oh, you have to go. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll go again. and we're working on putting together some tours, and she's insisting that we can't skip Montmartre. So I'm like, okay, all right, we'll include Montmartre. Whatever you say, Elise, you're the woman. Very good.
Like I said, it was Leslie's favorite place in all in Paris. So it's got there is a group of people that just eat it up for some reason the way it is.
Yep. Very good. All right. So you also hired a photographer.
Yeah, this I think is a great idea if you're going on your honeymoon, a romantic trip, or at any time with a family and things like that, because you're either going to have on your trip either tons of selfie pictures, which are really difficult to get right. You're going to have to give your camera to perhaps a stranger walking by or something like that. And I don't know if you remember the National Lampoon's European Vacation with Chevy Chase. Did you ever see that movie?
I saw it, but I don't remember everything about. I mean, I saw it. Yes.
I think he's in actually, he spends a lot of time in Paris, but I think this may be in Paris or Italy where he gives his camera for someone to take a picture and they just run off with the camera. Now, that's probably not going to happen in Paris, but you're giving the camera to someone who's an amateur photographer. It may not come out well either.
Exactly.
Or you're going to have someone in your party that takes a picture and is never going to be in the picture. So we thought it was a great idea. Again, using Viator, we hired a professional photographer who followed us, who basically guided us for, I think it was 2 hours, maybe a little bit more, around the Louvre, around the Seine River, in front of, where you can have views of the Eiffel Tower, and around different gardens and, fountains and things like that, all in that area.
Yeah.
Taking really romantic, professional pictures of us.
Yeah.
And several pictures that then we owned. We were sent an email with them all so that we have them now and could frame them and things like that. So I think it's a really nice touch to do. And you have these photos, I kind of wish we kind of had a way of bringing wardrobe changes because it's like 200 pictures. We all have the same clothes on, the same shirt. It's like that, but you don't always have that possibility. But still.
So how did you find this photographer?
Just using Viator again.
Okay.
I just something that was. There are actual tours where you can have a photographer training you to take pictures of famous things in Paris, and then there's tours like this where they're just taking pictures of you. And it was great that she knew where the best pictures were going to be coming. Were going to come out because the photographer does this every single day, so they know what will work. And we had perfect weather the entire time we were there, so
that's
we didn't
good.
have rain or anything like that either. So
that's really good. That's really good. Very good.
Nice.
So you talked about a bar where the Bloody Mary was invented. I've heard of that, but what's the story behind that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about this because I know at least here in the U.S. Bloody Marys are a very popular drink, especially Sundays, which is, recording this today on Sunday. I'm going to go after we record this and watch some football, American football with some friends, and we're going to have a couple of Bloody Marys. So very popular. So when I learned that there was this place in Paris that invented it, I told Leslie, even though she doesn't like Bloody Marys, we have to go. This is the one thing on the honeymoon that I am demanding. We're going to go and try this. The bar, ironically, is called Harry's New York Bar.
Oh, okay, that's the one. All right.
From New York, yeah. And the story behind it, from everything I read, different news stories and things like that, is that it was a bar in New York. This is before even the Harry's was added onto it. There was a bar in New York. The Prohibition era was coming. And the owner packed up basically his bar and opened it in Paris, knowing that he wasn't going to do much business during the Prohibition era here in the U.S. He opened the bar in Paris.
Why not? Sounds good.
But it was actually a French bartender, and there's different stories on which bartender and things like that. But it was actually a French bartender working in the bar that invented the Bloody Mary by mixing in vodka. And apparently they were serving vodka because there was a lot of Russians visiting Paris, and the bartender didn't really like the taste of vodka, mixing tomato juice and vodka and created a drink to help cure a hangover.
Yeah,
okay.
So, I'm not sure how well that would work, but okay.
And Harry's New York also claims to have invented several other famous drinks, one the sidecar, French 75, things like that. But it's a small little bar that definitely has a New York feel to it.
Yeah,
At night, they have jazz. Have you been there?
No, but I have seen pictures and I've heard of it. I just didn't put two and two together. I had heard about Harry's New York bar, but I didn't know that this is where the Bloody Mary was.
Yeah. I can tell you about the drink as an avid connoisseur of, Bloody Marys, that it's very basic. It's not like these American Bloody Marys where they add, all of this celery and shrimp and, spices and things like that. It's a very basic Bloody Mary, but it's very tasty. But, it's not going to be kind of what you're used to if you have all these American Bloody Marys for Sunday brunches,
Okay. Yeah, I don't really order Bloody Marys ever. I've had the one where it's champagne and orange juice on Sundays sometimes. What's that called? I can't remember what that's called either.
Mimosas.
Mimosas, yes, I've had that
Yeah.
one on occasion when we go to brunch. But Bloody Mary, I mean, it's like just the name of it. It's like, oh.
Well, it's nice to have an alcoholic drink where you can get your vegetables for the day too, you know?
Well, that
So,
is true. That is true. I do like tomato juice. I will drink tomato juice, just and
okay.
V8 and stuff like that. I like those, but but putting vodka in it, okay. I'm a wine person. You know, I really like wine and champagne and stuff like that. So
Sure.
wonderful. Okay, so one last thing about Paris, the cafes. You've mentioned a few cafes. What is it about Paris cafes that you thought was different and romantic?
First, I kept on telling, Leslie throughout the whole honeymoon, I love just the whole cafe lifestyle. It's so different than what we have here. I feel like in America, we have these Starbucks and things like that. And there are unique private, cafes and stuff like that. But it's where everyone just kind of just sits, relaxes, has their wine or their coffee or a meal, and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of time kind of stops in a way. And
Yeah.
a lot of the seats and the tables, the couples will sit side by side facing out,
Yeah.
um, and just kind of taking in everything. And just speaking to some French people and tour guides and stuff like that, telling me that is just like something it's part of their life that they enjoy doing so much, and
Yeah.
it's something they kind of schedule in. I need a few hours to just sit, relax at a cafe and people watch.
Yeah. And
Um,
most people in that, I mean, I live in a village, so that's different. But when I lived in a city, I used to go to cafes sometimes, like if I had 15 minutes before an appointment or something, you go into the city to go to a doctor's appointment. I still do this sometimes. You just, if you arrive a few minutes early, you sit at a cafe for a bit. You meet friends at a cafe. If you're meeting somebody for business and you don't really know them yet, or, you just meet at a cafe. It's like the normal thing that everybody does. And it's not necessarily for a long time. It's most of the time, actually, it's just for a few minutes. So,
Yeah, there seems like there's no pressure there at all. You can
no.
order as little as you want, as much as you want. Nobody's asking you like, "Hey, we need the table, please get,"
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
I have a friend who is an author, and this is something she asked me is, can I sit at a cafe and write? And so stay a long time. And my answer was probably yes, especially if it's not a super busy cafe. Just order something different maybe every half hour, get another coffee or get another drink of something. And it won't really matter. Now, of course, it's not like a Starbucks where they will have, the plugs for you, and it's not designed
right.
for people to stay there for a long time and write or read or anything, because honestly, you rarely see French people with a computer at a cafe. That's very bizarre for French people, because we don't stay that long. We just go have a coffee and chat for a friend, or on our way somewhere else. So it's kind of a bit of a strange question for French people, but I think it's okay. If you want to do that, it's okay. I mean, if they give you dirty looks, then, take the hint and go somewhere else. That's pretty much what it is, But I've never tried to do that myself. I've done it in Spain, though. And in Spain, it's about the same cafe culture. But when I'm in Spain, I'm on vacation. I have all the time in the world, so I can stay an hour or two. It's not the same. So wonderful.
Sure.
Well, you have given us some really good ideas. Some of them expensive, like Le Jules Verne. But I have never been, and I rarely go to starred restaurants. But when I do, I'm always impressed. It's always really, really good. It's the one thing you have to be a little careful about is if a restaurant just got their first star, that the year following that, they're going to have so many people coming in wanting to eat there that sometimes they can't keep up the quality. But it's only going to last a year or so, and then they will hire whoever they need to get the quality back up. And typically it's very good. But most starred restaurants in France, when they're not in the Eiffel Tower, you'll probably pay maybe like 100 euros for your meal and not, 500 or whatever. So, All right, that's it for Paris. I'll have you back to talk about Nice, because after Paris, you went on to Nice. And I don't really want to do both because we've been talking for 59 minutes already. We're a couple of chatterboxes.
No problem. I hope the information I shared will help other people in planning their honeymoon and romantic trip. And I'll just leave with, plan it. I would just say, plan what your heart desires. These are the things that really interested me and my wife. But plan the trip. You may want to spend a lot more time in museums looking at art and things like that, and that could be perfectly fine and very enjoyable. But hopefully, some of this information helps.
No, I think it's really good. I think it's really cool. Also, the tip about getting the photographer. I think that's kind of I see people do this now. They hire a photographer to follow them around Paris, and that sounds good. And I think other cities in France should do the same, because every city in France has some beautiful buildings. You can take some really good wedding photos or just, honeymoon photos or vacation photos if you have somebody who has an eye for it and knows the place. Gary, thank you so much. And you have done awesome. So I'll have you back soon.
Thank you. Merci.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. There are 4 ways you can support the show, and 2 of them will not cost you a penny. How about that for a win-win? Free, no cost to you. Make your regular purchases on Amazon using the link in the show notes or on joinusinfrance.com/Amazon or any Amazon link on the site. I get a small percentage as part of the Amazon Affiliates program. You don't pay a penny more at checkout. The trick, though, is to remember to do it. Also, free, no extra cost to you. You can click on any of the banners on the right-hand side of joinusinfrance.com before you buy the travel services you will need to come to France. I have listed affiliate partners for flights, hotels, car rentals, train tickets, tours, etc. The list will grow and expand, as time goes by. But when you go through those banner ads, you do not pay a penny more. In fact, you often get special discounts and offers because I'm always on the lookout for discounts and special offers on your behalf. But the trick again is to remember to do it and to go to the site and look at that. My preferred way to get support is via patreon.com. And why is that? Well, patreon.com is predictable. Remember, my goal is to make enough through your support so I can reduce my work hours. When you pledge on Patreon, I know what's coming. And that greatly reduces the stress of turning away paid work to do the podcasts, you see? That's why Patreon supporters get extra perks, because being able to count on your support month after month is really precious to me. So go to patreon.com/join us for details. And that's Patreon. And join us is without any spaces or anything. And of course, you can also make a one-time donation via the Tip Your Guide button on joinusinfrance.com. Those donations are wonderful. They make my day, but I know from experience that they don't happen very often. So here you go. 4 ways to support the show. 2 that won't cost you anything, and 2 that will cost you a little bit. It's up to you how you support the show. But please remember that without your support, this show and community would have to fade away, because I'm like everybody else. I have bills to pay. Thank you very much. This episode is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivatives International License.